This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. A 16-year-old who seriously injured a student in a sword attack at a Brandon school had plans for more victims and bloodshed. That's according to police, who say the situation could have been far worse than it already was. He's now facing attempted murder charges. CBC's Chelsea Kemp has the latest on the broad daylight attack.
Spartan strong, peace to all are among the messages written in chalk around Neelan High School. It's a show of support for the 15-year-old student violently attacked inside the school Tuesday. Ingrid Pullyblank says it was scary getting a text that her grade 10 teen was in lockdown. She helped decorate the sidewalks to support the injured boy and students traumatized by the violent attack.
I think we're just trying to process how to feel and how to navigate this and how to support those who were affected more so.
Brandon Police Chief Tyler Bates says officers arrived at the school minutes after being called about an armed person with a sword going crazy in the hallway. The school immediately went into lockdown, and Bates says the suspect was tasered and arrested. He says police intervened before anyone else was hurt.
The suspect in this matter had malicious intentions, and we do believe that those intentions were interrupted, that the response of our officers prevented further bloodshed.
A 15-year-old suffered serious stab wounds to the chest, forearms, hands, and thigh. He was taken to hospital and is now in stable condition. Lisa Park hopes the messages outside Neelan show him and his family the community supports them.
It just really shows people that they're not alone in a time like this, and love is going to win.
Sherry Connery's son is in grade 10. She says while they don't know why it happened, they want kids to feel safe coming to school.
There's kids that saw and heard things that they shouldn't have to, and you don't think would happen in a city this size, but we'll all come together and we'll get through it.
Police say they're still searching for a motive in the attack. The suspect also faces charges for possessing a weapon, uttering threats, and wearing a disguise. His next court appearance is scheduled for June 17th. Chelsea Kemp, CBC News, Brandon.
There's some encouraging signs in Manitoba's wildfire emergency. People from Cranberry Portage are going to be allowed home Saturday. And as Josh Crabb reports, some other evacuated communities are working on plans to welcome people back.
This is our suitcase. This is all we have.
It's been 2 weeks since wildfire forced 5,000 people, including Teresa Bignell, from their homes in Flin Flon.
This is where I do my laundry.
Hotel rooms have become people's homes. Before that, Bignell stayed in a Winnipeg evacuation shelter.
If it's safe, I'd be running back there. If I had wings, I'd fly home right now. Honest to God, it's I just want to get home.
Officials say the more than 300,000 hectare fire is out of control, and it's still not safe for people to go back. It's destroyed homes and other buildings in nearby Denair Beach.
I hope this message finds you with a bed, with food, and with people around you.
In an update on Facebook late Tuesday, the city's deputy mayor gave a glimmer of hope to evacuees. Allison Dallas Funk says officials are working on a plan for re-entry.
Re-entry is not a timeline. It's based on condition. So I wish I could say in 14 days, but I can't.
Dallas Funk says emergency crews are still focused on the firefight. She says people won't be able to go back until more progress is made and first responders are freed up. Hospital services would also need to be restored. At that point, the city can start looking at a phased re-entry. Flin Flon isn't alone. Chief David Moniz says Pimachikamak Cree Nation is also working to get people back home, but they can't say when. While mandatory evacuation orders remain in place for communities in the north, more areas have reopened in Whiteshell Provincial Park. Permanent residents, cottagers, and business owners were allowed to return Wednesday to Crow Duck, Florence, Nora, and Big Whiteshell Lakes.
I want to get back to normalcy because there is no normalcy.
There were concerns homes and businesses could be lost in Flin Flon. No structures have burned in the city, but the fires have taken a toll on evacuees.
I got goosebumps. It almost made me want to cry. I said, yes. I screamed, and my boyfriend was like, what? I said, yes, we got hope.
Talk of going home brings relief. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Meantime, some groups are heeding the ask from the province to help free up hotel rooms for those wildfire evacuees. The Canadian School Boards Association has cancelled as many as 400 hotel rooms in Winnipeg. Its national conference was to meet here in early July, taking up most of the rooms at 2 downtown hotels. It's now been changed to a virtual meeting to free up those rooms for evacuees. The group says the cancellations do come at a cost, but they say it was an easy decision.
They have given us a credit for the room value, but notwithstanding that credit, in total, this decision probably means about $100,000 loss for the association. It was not a difficult decision for us, given the need in the community at the present time, to simply have that given up for the sake of our community.
The group says it takes Indigenous education and reconciliation seriously, and many of the evacuees are from First Nation communities. They want to see all of those rooms now go to them. A website claiming to represent a Flin Flon clothing store says its warehouse was destroyed in the wildfires that forced the evacuation of the city. But a closer look at the site shows that it's a fake and the store doesn't exist. The I-Team's Caroline Bargout reports.
It's called Manitoba Mode. On the landing page, there's a photo of a building on fire and text saying, "This is the final goodbye." The company claims its warehouse in Flin Flon was destroyed by wildfires and that only a few pieces are left, which it's selling at deep discounts. There's even a countdown clock to imply urgency, which we found resets after it hits 0.
Well, that warehouse does not exist in Flin Flon.
We showed the website to Flin Flon's Mayor George Fontaine. He says he's never heard of the store and it's exploiting the situation.
Some people, can look at that and your sympathy takes over rather than your common sense. It overrides your common sense.
We did some digging, and there are a few tells that the site is a fake. The first is the fire trucks are just sitting in front of a burning building. There are no firefighters or water hoses in sight. When you zoom in, you see the words are gibberish. David Gerhardt heads the computer science department at the University of Manitoba. He says the photo looks like AI, a technology that will only get better with time.
In the early days of AI, it couldn't draw hands very well, and so it would draw like 15 fingers or something like that. But today it draws hands just fine, and so some of these tells might be clear one day and fixed the next.
He says AI is not great with text and photos together. Here, Manitoba is spelled incorrectly. Instead of an A at the end, there is an E.
The website says Manitoba Mode has been around for 15 years, but when we did a domain search, we found it was actually created on May 29th, the day after a mandatory evacuation order was issued for the city of Flin Flon.
25 wildfires continue to burn in this province. More than 21,000 people have been forced from their homes. The fire that's threatening Flin Flon is more than 300,000 hectares in size. The city's mayor says no structures have been destroyed.
There's enough bad things going on in Flin Flon right now that nature has provided for us. We don't need this kind of behavior from people around. So, no, it's disgusting. It's a terrible thing.
A sponsored ad appeared on Facebook, but was taken down after CBC News contacted Meta, Facebook's owner. In a statement, the company said, "Deceitful advertising is against our policies, and we are removing the ads, accounts, and pages provided to us. We continue to invest in ways to detect and disrupt them." Manitoba Mode has also taken down its website after we reached out. Caroline Bargout, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The Manitoba Métis Federation is warning people to be aware of other potential scams that are targeting evacuees in need. The MMF says spam emails are circulating that falsely claim to be from the Red Cross. In them, they request people provide banking information. MMF says these are fake and the Red Cross will not ask for any details to process payments. If you receive one of these emails, do not respond and don't share any personal information.
Well, time for a first check on your forecast. A hazy day across parts of southern Manitoba today. Mix of sun and clouds, though. A couple of scattered showers in the southwestern corner of the province, and did see a couple of stray lightning strikes even up around Fairford through the supper hour here. Air quality statement remaining in place for southwestern Manitoba through Westman, all the way back through Alberta and Saskatchewan. This is not because of wildfire smoke in Manitoba that we're seeing. This is all smoke from Alberta and British Columbia now riding the jet stream and coming down into southwestern Manitoba. So another hazy one as we head into the evening tonight. Partly cloudy skies down to 9. The slightest chance of maybe a couple of raindrops first thing in the morning. Otherwise, a mix of sun and clouds. 13 degrees first thing in the morning, and another very seasonal but hazy day tomorrow across the south. 23 degrees in the afternoon with a northeast breeze. I'll have more on some rain coming to northern Manitoba when I come back.
Some much needed rain.
Yes.
Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
They've switched classrooms for hotel rooms. Hundreds of students who should be in school learning are instead worried about their homes and communities after being evacuated due to wildfires. It's left many parents trying to fill their days and keep them busy. CBC's Rosanna Hempel has more.
Look at the clouds.
It's a welcome break for the children. Jessica Barkman's family has been cooped up in hotel rooms in Winnipeg since leaving Cross Lake 3 weeks ago.
My oldest one, 5 years old, she thought we were all going to burn and we're terrified of the smoke.
And adjusting to the city and the traffic have been difficult.
But here we're so isolated in a room where we have no access to public park.
The Cross Lake Education Authority helped organize this field day for evacuees and their kids. Cheryl Flett's family is crammed in a hotel room too.
Hectic, stressful, a lot of tantrums from the kids, wanting to go home.
Flett's 9-year-old daughter is getting her face painted today. Back at the hotel, she's learning math.
My daughter misses school, but then I help her do some stuff on her iPad.
The Frontier School Division says at least 800 of its students have also been displaced due to wildfires. It's the most significant evacuation the division has experienced. Even more students have been affected by school closures due to smoke. Chief Superintendent Tyson McGilvery says for now they're prioritizing student well-being.
We're hopeful that most of our communities will be repatriated back and we can resume normal school functions, hopefully for the last 2 weeks of the school year. As soon as we have the okay to get back into community, we'll re-engage our kids and making sure that they're in a good place to enter into their next grade level.
The Cross Lake Education Authority says they're getting ready to hold additional classes and graduations in Winnipeg should the evacuation extend much longer. For now, they hope this helps ease the transition. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Fire paramedics and bus drivers. They're two jobs that seem to experience some of the highest rates of workplace injuries among city workers. And the cost of those claims is weighing heavily on the city's finances. CBC's Cameron McLean has more.
You're here by yourself, just you. Increasing calls for service, an ongoing drug epidemic, and rising rates of violence are all factors driving up workers' compensation costs for the city of Winnipeg. Fire paramedics and bus drivers faced the brunt of the problems in 2024, leading to more time off and payouts.
But what the Workers' Compensation Board claims really reflect is the health of our city staff.
Workers' compensation costs have risen steadily, more than doubling over the last 5 years. In 2024, costs increased from more than $19 million to more than $25 million, a 31% jump. More than half of the claims were related to psychological stress. Mayor Scott Gillingham says the city is working to bring down those costs.
There has to be this balance between making sure we're doing all we can to get our city staff healthy, rehabilitated where possible, and back into the workforce as quickly as possible.
A survey earlier this year of more than 200 paramedics found 93% had experienced violence on the job. The head of the Winnipeg Transit Union says there are currently 44 drivers off for mental health injuries. Public Works Committee Chair Janice Luke says the nature of the jobs has changed.
It's just a really strange world out there right now. People are really, it's drugs. It's drugs that we're seeing all kinds of psychosis.
The head of the Winnipeg Firefighters Union says staffing ratios haven't kept up with demand for service.
Simply put, our population has grown, our call volume has skyrocketed. The men and women that are riding our fire trucks are being exposed to unsustainable volumes of calls during their shift.
A report on reducing workers' compensation costs is expected to be delivered to Council later this year. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
American and Canadian environmentalists are trying to block 2 massive dairy farms planned in North Dakota. They say the farms are a threat to the Red River and Lake Winnipeg. The farms would have more than 37,000 dairy cows. One would be just over a mile from the Red River. The other would have waste lagoons in the Red River floodplain.
The problem is that by the very nature of their operation, having this many animals in that small a space, generating that much waste untreated, makes it difficult to find a place to put these things safely, but particularly next to the river.
They met with Manitoba's Environment Minister today, and they want the matter to be investigated by the National Joint Commission. Marymount held their annual Indigenous Peoples Community Gathering and Powwow today. The event celebrates Indigenous culture and has been going on for more than 15 years. It's an event for young people and families they've worked with over the years, as well as people from the surrounding community. It includes music and performances, crafters and games, and of course, a good meal. It's the way to many hearts through our stomachs.
Exactly.
There's also going to be good food somewhere else tomorrow, the home opener for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
Yeah, had to dust off the old football weather graphic just for the occasion. 7:30 tomorrow evening kickoff. We are looking at gates opening around 6:30, so should be a pretty pleasant evening for that. Perhaps a bit hazy at times, but other than that, we're looking at a pretty decent night for some football as we get through the next evening here into the day on your Thursdays tomorrow already. So looking at the forecast for that home opener, 7:30, as I mentioned, 22 degrees or so, a bit cloudier than it was today, perhaps hazy at times. Northeasterly wind, 15 gusting to 30 as we get through the beginning of that game. We'll start to see winds dropping off 20 degrees by halftime, sun setting closer to 10 p.m. So should be a good evening of football in Winnipeg. I did mention I was tracking some rain as we get through the next several days here through northern Manitoba in particular. I'll start by stopping at 5 o'clock in the morning on Thursday. You can see Futurecast depicting the slightest chance of a few showers through the Inner Lake. Maybe some of this sinks as far south as the Red River Valley, but other than that, we just get a little bit of cloud cover, a bit more cloud than we saw today across parts of southern Manitoba, but it's what is coming Friday into Saturday that I'm watching. Another area of low pressure making its way across Saskatchewan. This one looks to bring a promising steady rain to parts of northern Manitoba, but I will caution this is still several days out and lots could change between now and then, particularly with the track of this in the amounts that we're looking at. So just a little bit of caution there, but this does look promising at this point for places like Flin Flon through Norway House, even as far north as Lynn Lake, looking at some measurable rain as we get toward the weekend. What this translates to, and again, this is several days out yet, is the potential for 15, 20 millimeters of rain. This particular model indicating up to 40 millimeters of rain in Flin Flon. I wouldn't read too much into these numbers just yet, but it is looking like immeasurable rain at this point coming to parts of northern Manitoba. You may have noticed a bit more haze across southern Manitoba. Again, I know we did have some of those air quality statements in place through parts of Westman. This is because of some smoke that is riding the jet stream. Bit of a ridge has formed, and that's pushing some of this down into southwestern Manitoba. But as we get Thursday into Friday, we see more of a northeasterly shift in those winds, and that will help to start diffuse some of that and push in some cleaner air across southern Manitoba. So tomorrow likely to be a bit hazy once again, but as we get Friday and certainly into Saturday, I think we're looking at that smoke dissipating a little bit as we go toward the weekend here. So very seasonal tomorrow, 23 degrees, slightest chance of a shower first thing in the morning, 24 for Friday, and then we can't forget about Father's Day, Brittany, on Sunday, mainly sunny, 27 degrees.
Time to celebrate.
Yes,
thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
It was meant to be a unique way for elementary students to learn about the land. At the center of it, a teepee outside an East Kildonan elementary school. But the teepee was stolen, and now there are new lessons. Matt Humphrey explains.
This is where students at Angus Mackay Elementary School were going to learn about the land. Teachers had set up a teepee to teach students about the summer solstice, along with Indigenous Peoples Day on June 21st. It was set up right here. It was quite large. But now educators are making different plans because, as you can see, the teepee is gone.
The teepee was supposed to be on the front lawn of the K-5 school for 2 weeks. Principal Jean-Paul Rochon sent teachers to knock on doors nearby, but no one has any leads so far.
Well, there's lots of teepee teachings that the kids could do if we think about land-based learning. If we're going to talk about learning from the land and learning about different cultures, it would be important to learn within the context of those pieces.
Rochon says the teepee was on loan from an Indigenous knowledge keeper. At 14 feet tall, it took about an hour and a half to set up Monday afternoon. By Tuesday morning, it was missing.
We've had lots of offers for teepees. We have a family that lives in our community has offered to set up their teepee for the day. We've had other people reach out and talk about how they can, help make things right, whatever.
That same knowledge keeper sent a second teepee, now set up in the library. Chelsea Dick is a member of the Parent-Teacher Association.
This isn't the kind of thing that you can just tuck under your jacket and walk off with. So I honestly, I don't know. I don't know how it was done. I don't know how someone managed to do it undetected. It's a very quiet neighborhood.
And parent Kelly Johnson thinks there's a lesson in the theft.
I know that some of the elders were notified that this happened, and they had a really kind of a beautiful perspective on the situation. I heard that one of them had said, if someone took it, maybe they had a greater need for it than we did.
On social media, hundreds in the community have expressed their upset feelings over the theft. A police report has been filed. The principal of the school says he hopes the teepee is returned, and if it is, there will be no questions asked. Matt Humphrey, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Several world leaders will be in Alberta this Sunday for the start of the G7 summit. But the guest list is not restricted to those from the 7 countries in the group. The heads of India and Saudi Arabia are also invited, and that's put the Carney government on the defensive. Olivia Stefanovich explains why.
Hi, sir. Why are we inviting Modi and MBS to the...
As the Prime Minister prepares to host international leaders next week in Kananaskis, Alberta, Mark Carney's G7 guest list is facing criticism, even within his own caucus.
It is a damaging thing because we Canadians are known in the world as caring and compassionate and people who love human rights.
Carney privately met this morning with about a dozen Liberal MPs who pushed back against invitations Carney sent to Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, although he's not coming, and India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, both accused of human rights violations.
And the killing of a Canadian citizen.
This will be Modi's first trip here, since his government was accused of killing Hardeep Singh Nijjar and targeting other Indian dissidents in Canada.
That is not a good idea, but now he's invited. We have to move forward.
Liberal MPs say Carney can press Modi to stop his government's interference in Canada, while also using the visit to send a message to U.S. President Donald Trump.
At this time of crisis, we need to be able to collaborate.
There are opportunities for Canadian businesses from around the world, and India is a big part of that.
Critics say the thaw in relations comes with a price.
This government has consistently and very clearly chosen profits and the economy over human rights.
I think this is a betrayal of not just our community, but of Canadian values.
It's a difficult balancing act for the Prime Minister.
An act this global affairs expert says Carney is hoping will pay off long term.
Part of the G7's role is to facilitate cooperation on some very big issues like the global economy, critical minerals, transnational crime, and to deal with those issues, you do need big actors around the table.
But there are limits to that strategy. The Prime Minister's office says extending G7 invitations to Russia and China are out of the question. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
There may be some movement on a potential trade agreement between Canada and the U.S. Sources tell CBC News negotiators from both countries are working off the same outline, but they also warn there's still much work ahead. Katie Simpson reports.
Negotiations between Canada and the U.S. have gotten to a point that a document outlining a potential agreement has been shared back and forth by officials in Ottawa and Washington. That is, according to 3 sources with direct knowledge of the information. Prime Minister Mark Carney and President Donald Trump will ultimately be the ones making final decisions. Those sources say a deal is not imminent. More work needs to be done, and they are not expecting an agreement before the G7 summit in Alberta next week. We have learned more about what's in this document, though. According to one source, it includes a commitment from Canada to participate in the Golden Dome missile defense strategy. That is a controversial proposal from U.S. President Donald Trump that could cost hundreds of billions of dollars and take years to develop. It also highlights Canada's recent commitment to meeting its NATO defense spending targets, Canada's plan to make further security investments in the Arctic, and previously announced measures to highlight border security. Canada is pushing for tariff relief from the Americans, but what the Trump administration is willing to commit to at this point remains unclear. There are a wide range of tariffs imposed on Canadian goods, though there are also carve-outs and exceptions in some cases. The biggest challenge right now is the higher tariff just imposed on both steel and aluminum. Most U.S. trading partners are now facing a 50% tariff, and that's not something Trump appears to be willing to back away from anytime soon. The talks, I am told, are making progress, but one thing to keep in mind is that Canadian officials are dealing with the Trump administration, which has been preoccupied by protests in Los Angeles and trade negotiations with China. And making things even more complicated, of course, is that the president himself is unpredictable. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
Now, protests against Donald Trump's immigration crackdown are spreading beyond Los Angeles to other U.S. cities. The unrest in LA began last week when federal agents carried out raids against undocumented migrants. Trump sent in thousands of National Guard troops in response against the wishes of California officials. CBC's Chris Reyes has the latest.
President Trump's military operation in Los Angeles continues for another day. So far, 4,700 personnel, including 700 Marines, have been deployed.
So strictly for the protection of the federal personnel and the protection of the federal building, they're allowed to temporarily detain and wait for law enforcement to come and arrest them. They do not do any arrest. They're strictly there to detain, to wait for law enforcement to come and handle those demonstrators.
How are you? From the White House, a warning for anyone with plans to protest and block the work of ICE agents.
And let this be an unequivocal message to left-wing radicals in other parts of the country who are thinking about copycatting the violence in an effort to stop this administration's mass deportation efforts. You will not succeed. Any lawlessness will only strengthen this president's resolve to defend the majority of Americans who want to live their lives peacefully.
The coordinated response from Trump's top staffers comes after protests hit other cities overnight, including here in New York City, and following an impassioned televised address from California's Governor Gavin Newsom.
Families separated, friends quite literally disappearing.
Who called the president's actions in his state a threat to democracy. Attorney General Pam Bondi said the Trump administration is not afraid to go further if the situation in Los Angeles flares again.
We're going to do everything within our legal authority to protect our law enforcement officers and all the people in California right now. You know, you guys, this is serious out there. We want to protect people. We want to protect law enforcement and all the hard-working people there who are trying to go to work every day.
This weekend, more protests are planned around the country under the banner No Kings. It could be the largest mobilization against the Trump administration since he took office in January. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
Former movie mogul Harvey Weinstein has been convicted of one of the top charges in his sex crimes retrial in New York. Weinstein was, however, acquitted of another charge. Jurors have not yet reached a verdict on a third charge of sexual assault. Those deliberations will continue Thursday. Weinstein's initial conviction 5 years ago was a pivotal moment for the Me Too movement, but it was overturned on appeal last year. He has pleaded not guilty to all charges. Weinstein faces up to 25 years in prison when he's sentenced. He also faces a 16-year prison term for a separate rape conviction in California. The creative genius behind the Beach Boys has died. Brian Wilson was considered one of the world's most influential composers and recording artists. Wilson wrote and arranged hits such as Good Vibrations and California Girls. He was the last of the three musical brothers who became world ambassadors for California's surf and sun lifestyle. The group's harmonies, melodies, and complicated arrangements also inspired the Beatles. Wilson was tormented by mental health issues, but returned to recording and performing later in life. His last public appearance was just over a year ago. He'd been suffering from dementia. Brian Wilson was 82. Many of the wildfires burning through Canada's forests are threatening homes, businesses, and cabins. But some people are ignoring evacuation orders and staying behind to protect their properties from the flames. That includes a group of neighbours in Saskatchewan's Narrow Hills Provincial Park. Aaron Collins has their story.
It's the kind of view worth fighting for. And at Lower Fishing Lake this spring, that's just what happened. Like many parts of northern Saskatchewan, this park under threat from fast-moving wildfires. On the ground, a group of locals staying behind, digging in to beat back the flames.
When things got close to home here, it was all hands on deck to come here and save the cabin.
We're still fighting here. It's right at Rangers Beach now.
A handful of men fighting a wall of fire.
Dad and I, and then three other cabin owners, Rick, Lenny, and Greg.
The blaze just a stone's throw from their cabins, history repeating itself. This family fought a similar fire along the same road nearly 50 years ago.
Grandpa's been gone for quite a few years, and Dad said, you know, I feel okay, I feel Grandpa here. Like, he was with Dad fighting it in 77, and he said, Grandpa's helping us out too.
Now, there were losses in this firefight. A forest scorched, the local hall gone, but every cabin saved.
A lot of people would probably ask you, why did you do this?
Yeah, we get that question a lot. I guess it's just for the decades and decades of memories that are in these places, all these cabins. It's like a family in here, I feel. Like it's, yeah, everybody's got each other's back, and if we weren't able to be here, I know that other people would have come up.
The fire that came through here, just one of hundreds burning across Canada.
There's places in northern Ontario, northern Alberta, northern BC, all burning right now. And you hear of all the other locals that are sticking around. So it's not just us. There's so many people right now that are fighting for their own houses and their own communities and forests.
But for now, this fight is over. This place safe. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Lower Fishing Lake, Saskatchewan.
I mean, you can see why some people stay behind. It's just gorgeous out there.
Yeah.
Pretty gorgeous day in some parts of the province. And it's not going to be too bad for the rest of the week.
No.
Especially if you need to get outside and take that pupper for a walk.
Very seasonal conditions. Wind's not too strong. I know wind's a bit of an issue earlier in the week, but wind's lightening up as we get into the day tomorrow. And then we're pretty seasonal right through the weekend and entering another dry stretch. So your dog walking forecast as we head into your Thursday. I think you'll notice tomorrow a little bit more cloud cover than we saw today, particularly later in the day. Probably perfect weather for pups like Maggie. Thank you, Carolina, for sending this picture in. You can send yours the talkback at cbc.ca. So 13 degrees first thing in the morning, looking at light northeasterly winds, some gusts perhaps up to 30, but nothing too crazy out there tomorrow. 23 degrees, very seasonal in the afternoon, and then you'll notice that cloud building in as we get late afternoon into the early evening. So we have a bit of a ridge that has built, a really weak ridge that has built, and that's what's helped kind of push some of that wildfire smoke from British Columbia and Alberta down into southern Saskatchewan, southern Manitoba. That's what's prompted some of those air quality statements on the western side of the province. Some heat to the south of that, but this does start to collapse a little bit as we get toward the weekend, as we see a bit of a cooler airflow to the north of us, allowing some cooler air in from the Arctic, from Hudson Bay, helping that wildfire fight in northern Manitoba. 8 degrees in Thompson right now, 22 in both Portage la Prairie and Winnipeg, 21 in Brandon, 20 in Swan River. Overnight tonight, partly cloudy skies, mostly clear for some of us as we get through the evening tonight. 7s, 9s through the western side of the province, 9 for both Winnipeg and Portage la Prairie. Gimli looking at a low of 11 overnight tonight. Again, very seasonal, very comfortable to sleep with the windows open tonight in particular. Looking at 7 degrees in the Pas and OCN, 4 in Norway House, and close to freezing once again, thanks to those northerly and northwesterly winds pulling some cooler air off of Hudson Bay through Gillam and Shamattawa overnight tonight. A few clouds through northwestern Manitoba, maybe a few sprinkles out of some of this as we get through the afternoon hours tomorrow. Other than that, looking at a mix of sun and clouds across the north. 16 in Thompson, Tuduli Lake looking at 17 tomorrow afternoon. Mostly sunny skies in the south. Early in the morning, maybe a couple of stray showers into northwestern Ontario, but temperatures, again, very seasonal for this time of the year. Easterly winds in Westman, likely keeping those air quality statements in place for at least the early part of tomorrow. 23s for Portage in Winnipeg, 20-ish degrees through northwestern Ontario, and generally looking at a mix of sun and clouds as we get through the day on Thursday.
So I know we've been talking a lot about fires, but around this time, 75 years ago, a large swath of Winnipeg was underwater. Thousands of Winnipeggers were being told one thing: leave your home and head to higher ground.
It is a flood that left many displaced and completely devastated parts of Winnipeg, and is seen as one of the worst floods in Winnipeg's history. I spoke recently with Kenneth Ingram of the Seven Oaks Historical Society about the flood of 1950 and the impact that it had on Winnipeg. All right, so we're here on Scotia Street. I'm here with Kenneth Ingram from the Seven Oaks Historical Society. Thanks for your time. So, nice spring day today here in the neighborhood. I imagine things looked a lot different 75 years ago in 1950. We're talking about the flood, of course.
Absolutely, yeah. 75 years ago, plus a few weeks, this area was just full of water, and we're talking 5-10 feet tall in lots of properties. The first floor totally full of water, and people were being evacuated, told to leave their homes and wait until it recedes.
So, I mean, what would the average Winnipegger have experienced at that time?
Yeah, so if you lived near the river, of course, you're leaving your home, but of course, if you have family near the river, you're going to be expecting family members to be joining you in your home in a makeshift room, and so you're getting crowding in your house, of course, and you don't know for how long this is going to last.
Yeah. What would have, not just in this neighborhood, but, you know, folks that are maybe a little further out from where we are on the steps of the Red River here, like, what would the mood have been like in the city at that time?
Oh, it would have been like something that they had almost never seen before. I mean, the previous flood to this that was at this magnitude would have been about 36 years ago. And so it wasn't exactly in recent memory for a lot of the people living in this neighborhood. And so it was totally something that they weren't expecting. So just total shock.
So we're outside of this house in particular, number 265. Tell me about the significance of this home here in particular.
Yeah, so this home really sort of exemplifies a lot of these 1950 flood photos we see, and just how high the water got. And you have this decoration here on the left side of the home, and you can see exactly how high the water got here just from looking at the photos before and seeing it now from person to person. Some people just accepted the flood, that they lived near the river. Some people moved. Other people moved and chose to move their house with them like building contractor and home builder Walter Sinicki, who actually picked up his home at 261 Scotia and moved it to the corner of Macadam and Salter.
I imagine no easy feat back in 1950.
Absolutely not, no.
When people think about floods in Winnipeg, the flood of 97, of course, is probably the one that comes to mind the most for people. But why should people think about the flood of 1950 as well? What's the significance of that one?
It really was a turning point in Winnipeg history because politicians soon realized that we have to get ahead of some of these disasters before they happen again. And that's when 10, 15 years later, we started hearing talk about a permanent floodway. And then 15 or so years later, it was finally completed. And that's the reason why the 1997 flood wasn't nearly as bad as this one, even though the water levels would have been higher without the flood.
And you've done a lot of research into the flood of 1950 in particular. Is there anything that surprised you in everything that you've looked into?
Yeah, well, the flood could have been much, much worse, and it did get to Main Street in some spots. It was very close, just at Main here, near Rupert's Land and Seven Oaks. But it could have been much worse, another foot or two, and the water could have made it all the way to the rail tracks, 2/3 of the way between Main Street and McPhillips, had the water just gotten another foot or two higher. So,
yeah. We're talking about this 75 years later in 2025 here. What should Manitobans take away from this? Like, why should we think back to 1950 when we're thinking about floods in Winnipeg?
Well, in the grand scheme of things, 75 years isn't all that long ago, and all of these families all had their individual stories, and now is a perfect time to think about all of the people that were living here during that time, their family situation, their occupations, and what their houses looked like at the time. And it's a perfect time to experience this local history that we often don't hear enough about.
Something like this, do you think possible again?
Well, now that we have the floodway, luckily, it doesn't seem quite as likely, but you never know. You can never fully trust the red.
For sure. Kenneth, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Home again after 6 months away. Hundreds of soldiers have returned to CFB Shiloh after being deployed in Latvia. Sergeant Ryan Gilks was one of them, and he got the warmest welcome from his 4-year-old son. Gilks says they were part of an ongoing mission called Operation Reassurance. It was part of Canada's contribution to NATO's measures to discourage aggression in Central and Eastern Europe.
I think we are making a difference. It is nice we're there and see how other nations do things, especially for me being an artilleryman, seeing how the other nation's artillery does stuff.
The Canadian Armed Forces says that operation involved about 1,000 members from the Army, Navy and Air Force. That makes it the single largest overseas operation for Canada right now.
All right, looking at another sunny one for the early part of the day, at least through much of southern Manitoba. That means we should talk about UV index, looking at 8 or very high as we get through the afternoon hours tomorrow. That means maybe try to avoid direct sunlight between the 11 and 3 o'clock hours if you can. Of course, the hat, the sunglasses, the sunscreen, the water, you'll need that as we get through not just tomorrow, but into the summer months as well. So 23 degrees, maybe a bit hazy once again into the afternoon. We see that wind shifting to more northeasterly flow as we get through the rest of the day into the weekend. That should help to push some of that out as we get through into the day on Saturday. 24 degrees, Father's Day, 27 under a mix of sun and clouds, and our next chance for showers coming our way into the day on Monday. Well, a new art installation at London's Kensington Gardens is encouraging visitors to do more than just take a look.
Okay, if you're a fan of Lego, tonight's Daily Lift is just for you.
So we're trying to encourage people to take a moment out of their day and to embrace their inner child and to grab some Lego bricks and see what their imagination.
Well, the structure made with Lego bricks is titled the Play Pavilion. Veteran British architect Peter Cook is behind the design. He says he never really even played with Legos before this.
We wish we could show it to you. Along with the colorful castle and the yellow slide, there are workstations set up as well where kids and even adults can unleash their imagination. Just use yours. Professional Lego builders are on site to help visitors overcome any creative blocks. It happens.
Technical problems happen.
Gremlins.
It's okay. You can imagine. We're all good at using our imagination.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll have a wonderful night. We will be back here. Can't even speak right now. Back here tomorrow night.
See ya.